the girls of hip hop, Missy Elliott.
So I too am the beneficiary of affirmative action, but it does not mean that I was not. Oh, here you go again. I thought we left that potato salad back in the last episode.
For Memorial.
What you say? What you talking about, Willis?
Okay.
This is the All Rev'd Up podcast, and we are back with season 8. This is season 8, episode 4, and I'm Reverend Emmett Price.
And I'm Reverend Irene Monroe.
Before we jump into our conversation on why Black history, we thank our new sponsors of the podcast, Africana Studies at Berkeley and the Black Christian Experience Resource Center. We especially thank each of our listeners and viewers. We have had a good time with each of you during our previous 7 seasons, and we're so excited for this 8th season. From special invitations to attend events to speaking engagements and even to a special live episode, you have been amazing, and we are grateful. Thank you, 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 thank you for listening to us on the various podcast apps and for watching the actual live recording of the podcast on our YouTube channel. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your reviews, and thank you for your comments. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast with others.
And I would be remiss if I didn't come with my tsunami of thanks to our loyal listeners and a hearty welcome to our new ones here. Thank you for being our motivator and reason for bringing out the best in us. And lastly, but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't offer a tsunami of thanks and a shout out to our creative geniuses, which are our producers, Kyla Wright and Cavante Smalls, because as I always say, and Emmett will chime in, we couldn't be what we be without them.
Hear, hear, and amen. That's absolutely right. Irene, Women's History Month is coming up, and I just imagine, if it hasn't happened yet, that there would be a cancellation of Women's History Month the same way that there's been a cancellation of Black History Month. What are you writing about? What are you talking about? Will the revolution be televised? Come on, talk to us. Give us something to hold on to.
Well, I need to say this here. Kendrick Lamar did say it'd be televised, but he might not be the one to bring it. So maybe I might be the one to bring it. But again, there's always been, even when we were, quote, allowed to have these history months and Women History Months in particular, there's always been a paucity of celebrating Black women. And when I say Black women, I mean the spectrum. I mean Black women in all fields, in medicine, in law. When I say Black women, I'm saying Black lesbian women. I'm saying Black trans women. And so I'm writing a piece really celebrating, and this is actually for Boston Spirit magazine, celebrating the life of Rita Hester and a couple of other Black trans women. Because again, when we look at the history, trans women are always invisible. And in this particular time, we have a government that is doing their darndest to erase every trace of trans people.
Well, I can't wait to read it. But for now, let's talk about why Black history.
Yeah.
But it's not an argument against DEI. It's how much of our resources are we actually putting?
But that's not that's not the way the conversation is being posed in America today. The conversation about DEI and woke and all of that sounds about marginalized Black and brown people who already are threatened seem to be threatened in this community, in this society, and they're not getting the same opportunities. It was the same thing with affirmative action. Went to UCLA, they got rid of affirmative action. Everyone said you got in because of affirmative action. When I graduated, affirmative action didn't take my test. Affirmative action didn't help me get to where I'm at today. It gave me access that I didn't have based on the opportunity that I lacked because of the circumstances I was born into, which had nothing to do with me, but the country in which we live in.
It's been about 6 weeks since the change of the presidential administration down in Washington, D.C., and it seems like everything is changing and changing fast. One of the biggest things that is going national is the cancellation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, including the articulated removal of Black History Month and Juneteenth. Irene, why are we getting rid of Black history? I mean, I don't even have a long intro for this episode because I'm so interested to hear your thoughts. What in the world or what in the nation is going on?
I think that when you erase a people's history, you do try to erase them. But I think there's a certain amount of hubris to assume that if the administration cancels Black history, it won't happen. And particularly as Black people, we have always celebrated ourselves. But what we do understand is this, that the victors shape and tell and write history. But we've been making history since the first day we stepped foot on this shore called America in 1619. But I want folks to understand what was happening, something very similar to what is happening now, that in terms of understanding the genesis of Dr. Carter Woodson inventing Negro History Week. It's a pushback against the lies and the stereotypes that even play out today. But this is what the genius of this man, that when there were no academic journals to counter racist scholarship, Dr. Carter G. Woodson created one. When there was no professional presses that would accept their material about African Americans, he founded one. And when there was no public acknowledgement of the achievements and celebrations of Black people, Carter Woodson created what we now know is Black History Month. It started at a great time. It started during the Harlem Renaissance in 1926. It started out as a week, really, the second week of February, to honor really the birthday of Frederick Douglass, which I will get into because I don't know even if today, but I knew in 2017, Trump didn't know whether Frederick Douglass was dead or alive, but for our audience, I want you to know he died in 1895. But Black History Month started in celebration of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. So this is the kind of stuff that we're up against. Things we're up against an era that says facts are not facts. There are alternative facts. There's fake news. I mean, and we got to understand that what we're against here. We see now the banning of critical theory, African American history, the banning of authors, of course, the dismantling of DEI. I mean, I could go on, and we have a counter kind of body of work. Some of it is called the lost cause. This whole idea that the war didn't happen because of race, and the other side, the Confederates won. But I think that we got to look at what happens when we believe, even from the administration, that he can cancel Black History Month. The hubris. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm in alignment with my dear sister, Carrie Champion, who we heard from ESPN. She was on CNN's Night News with Abby Phillips, and this is back from February 5th, 2025. And that sister just read it. She read it. I mean, she not only went theoretically and gave a kind of accounting, she made it personal and talked about her time at UCLA. I was at Cal Berkeley right when, a matter of fact, I was in the last graduating class, undergraduate, when they passed Proposition 209 in California, which got rid of affirmative action. And the numbers declined dramatically in terms of the enrollment numbers of blacks and browns and, underrepresented and under-recognized, I would also add underappreciated human beings. And like Carrie Champion said, ain't no affirmative action or DEI ever take my examinations. When I was studying for my doctorate, my master's and my doctorate and my next master's, ain't no DEI or affirmative action got me no job. And I've been at some of the leading institutions of higher learning across this nation. Yeah. So, that argument is absolutely foolish, but it's also a reflection of the fear. What did who was that? Public Enemy, right? The Fear of a Black Planet. You remember that, right? Back in the 80s, the album, right? And there is a great fear by white folk, white people, who are just afraid of intelligent black folks, which is why it was illegal for us to learn how to read and write back in the day.
That's right. And that's why the historical black colleges, the HBCUs, one of their slogans was, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste," because the greatest fear in terms for white America as an educated black person, I will always remember the DNC. where Michelle Obama said, okay, that because Trump was talking about black jobs, and she went on to say that, you know what, one of this black job that you're talking about might be your black job. I think also that, and she went on to talk about how Trump really denigrated and really tried to destroy them because they were two really highly educated black couple that he just couldn't grasp. But I want to tell you another my sort of quick story here. So so New York City always tests you, and I would always get like 100 or high 90s on the statewide exam, and they assume because you're a project kid or as well as a ward of New York State, the assumption that a math aptitude is only the province of white males. And you understand that, you know, going to UC Berkeley and you weren't the right phenotype to be a math major.
That's right.
And so the problem was, so interestingly enough, they had me take the test again, assuming that I had cheated, that I had a cheat sheet, or that I wrote it on my hand and scored higher. Because having the memory that I had, I remembered what I didn't know. Duh. So finally they said, well, you know what, maybe that loud black ghetto girl, okay, that they would call Shaniqua today, okay, maybe Shaniqua may have a math aptitude. Duh. You know, so it's that sort of stuff here about black inferiority. The reason why we have, and I just happen to know this 7% of black doctors and in the United States, I know that because I'm married to one. It's not because we don't have the aptitude, we don't have access, just like what was said in the video, to go to med school, the right kind of education. I think what troubles me here when we think about education in black history, that here I am in the hub of what is called not only the People's Republic, but the hub of academia. I'm flanked with, you know, to the north, Harvard, and to the south, MIT. But a black child getting into Harvard, let me just say it this way. A black child probably from Tougaloo, Mississippi would have a better chance getting into those premier institutions than a black child graduating from Cambridge, Rindge, and Latin. Because even though it is only the only high school here in Cambridge, they track you. And so it's the tracking. That is what we talk about, that institutional racism, okay? That is the assumptions about black inferiority that plays itself out. And what happens with that, when you see a negation of that in spite of that, still we rise, then we got to come up with another way to denigrate our achievement. So the best way to do it, this administration was like, look, let's just erase it completely. Let's erase it completely.
Now, we got to go to break. But before we go to break, and I'm going to have the producers cut us off when I'm done saying what I'm going to say, because I'm about to piss you off. First of all, we agreed to not talk about that guy, and you invoked his name 3 times. So I want you to cease and desist. I want you, or else I'm gonna cancel you. We can't talk about that. Okay, we can't talk about that guy, right? I'm gonna cancel you. And the second thing, Irene, Shaniqua is so 90s.
Okay, and
we're going to break. We're going to break.
Look, y'all. I am in love with what's going on right now. Because, you know, when your master don't want you no more, you might figure out that you don't need a master. And then the real revelation, you don't want a master.
This is the All Rev'd Up podcast, and we are back. I do not need a master. I do not want a master. And Irene, I'm so glad that we got that thing straight about that guy and all. I love you so much. Our last episode was on Black Love and Black Joy. I love you, and I enjoy you.
I was referring too much to the perceived master. Okay.
Thank you.
So I just want you to know, Emmett, I'm manumitted now. Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Eyes free.
Free at
Okay.
last, free at last. Thank
Okay.
God Almighty.
But I
We
just,
free at last.
yeah, but the hubris to assume you could cancel a celebration, something like Juneteenth, we've been doing forever. We've been
Ever.
doing since 1865. So it's so funny because it only became federalized 2 or 3 years ago.
Ain't
like,
that something?
like really? Like really? Okay. So I find that so funny. But I also, what I find very, very troubling here is that for those who don't know the history, there's always been two Americas, okay? To be quite honest, I need to say this here. We had more black capital, okay, and more black community when we were forced to live and make, as they say, and make two different worlds. We own beauty parlors, gas stations,
Banks.
hotels.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay,
Yeah.
wait, we were homeowners.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So, I mean, the whole idea that we're going to wait for that, 40 acres and a mule? Okay? That that didn't even come when it was supposed to come. Or the GI Bill working for us. I mean, so the whole idea that you're dismantling DEI as to assume that is going to get us to the promised land, like we've always been on a trajectory. It might help us get us faster, but it won't stop us moving forward.
Well, I am so in alignment with what you just said, and certainly with our dear brother and our colleague, Dr. Carr, from Howard University. This clip was from In Class with Carr, episode 256, the blackest Black History Month, on the Karen Hunter Show from February 2nd, 2025. And the realization is, just as you were just saying, the majority of historically black colleges and universities were birthed in basements of black churches. I mean, when you go back, they were FUBU, right? For us, by us. And one of the things that happens when we are persecuted, when we are pressed down, when we are disturbed, when we are people are attempting to take everything that we have for us, we still rise.
Right. And
Big
also,
Sister Maya Angelou said it best, and still we rise.
But we got to be honest here. So, Emmett, and you're in this category with me. You went to Berkeley. You went to a University of Pittsburgh. Okay, I went to Wellesley, Columbia, and then Harvard. I got the best education that white supremacy can teach me. Okay. Now, and had I ingest all of that, I would be their best Afro-Saxon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got to understand the kind of education that we're getting. G. Carter Woodson book, The Education of the Negro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a body of information, and we've found creative ways to create it. So then when there were no books, we had griots, oral historians.
Yeah.
When we had no books and couldn't read, we had the Chitlin Circuit. And I need to talk about the veracity of the Chitlin Circuit, okay? I know people think of it as a gossip line, and I know that they equate it to Black Twitter, but I got to tell you some veracity here, okay? The Chitlin Circuit for years said that Tom Jefferson has some black children, all right? Okay. And this was before Professor Henry Louis Gates at Harvard, okay, on his show, Finding Your Roots, proved it with the scientific DNA. And you know why? Because they were the only black children with black, red, nappy hair. Okay. That is the veracity of the Chitlin Circuit. Strom Thurmond, Mr. Segregationist. Segregation here, segregation tomorrow. Everybody said he had a black baby. Boom, he dies. That woman looked just like him. Essie Mae. So all I'm saying is that we have found, when we talk about epistemology, a body of information, our epistemology is not only written, it's oral, it's musical, we would sing it. So I'm just saying that we have found ways to keep our history alive. And that's not just coming from the pulpit. There are various ways that we have done that. So, and Carter Woodson I mean, he made a way out of no way. You're not going to put us in a journal? Then we got a journal. I mean, and then you see it with W.E.B. Du Bois with the crisis. I mean, so that's absurd. Listen, black newspapers. Come on. I didn't grow up reading the New York Times or the Daily News for that matter. You're not reading the Boston Herald. We're reading the Bay State Banner. I mean, so the absurdity of that.
I mean, let's go back for a second because you just named Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, the first PhD recipient of a history degree at Harvard University.
Yeah.
And then you named Dr. Carter G. Woodson.
That's right.
The second recipient
That's
of a
right.
PhD at Harvard University. And both of these brothers received their degrees before diversity, equity, and inclusion, and before affirmative action.
Come on.
So we have been doing merit. Check this out. We've been doing merit for a long time. I mean, you think about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who went to Berea College, who went to University of Chicago, who went to Harvard University. I mean, so again, and you made this point beautifully. I'm just reiterating and interpreting for those in the back who couldn't catch what you were saying. We have been doing merit for a long time. So if you want to revoke, remove, redecide, realign, reestablish, whether it's DEI or affirmative action, guess what? We still gonna rock out in the classroom. Y'all still gonna be trying to cheat from us. You still want to be like us. Y'all gonna still trying to figure out scientific discoveries like BBLs and Botox so you can look like us. So, I mean, go for it. Have fun.
But I do feel that what happens though, when you try to do away with diversity, you make an assumption, and again, that's the hubris of it, that only one particular group has the province of intellectual merit. As a matter of fact, they have shown that companies that had diversity did far better in areas of innovation, creativity. Listen, really, I mean, music, absolutely. So I think that what happens when you have a white supremacist kind of ideology here, I mean, not only is it myopic, but your very group that you're trying to elevate and use as American exceptionalism won't make the mark. Won't make the marker.
But at the end of the day, and I hear what you're doing, and I appreciate it, and I respect it. But you can't make logical, which is illogical. So, Black History Month, we didn't always had it. When it became,
we are it.
We are it, right? We didn't already had it. Yeah. So, you know,
Time for benediction.
I don't even have nothing else to say, Irene. I mean, you got me in this space right here. I'm just gonna have to look.
You're speechless.
I'm turning my mic off.
All right. Okay.
Go on and close off first,
okay.
Please.
Why Black History Month? Because we gather to showcase us. There's something about us that only we understand, like the nod and the talk. It is something notably in the way we see the world and how we learn from it, like our lived experience that cannot be denied and will not be ignored, which is why our history is a canon for survival and an archive for future generations. So why Black history? Because there's a propensity in this society for forgetting our names, our faces, our contributions, our achievements, and a difficulty in distinguishing us. And because we know the danger of a single story, we showcase an array of them. So why Black history? Because America has always wanted us to serve and service it for its comforts and needs. So we remind ourselves that our lives are like sacred texts. Black History Month is a story to be told of our struggles faced and our triumphs won. It is a legacy of resilience and a race well run. Ashe.
Ashe.
And amen.
Amen. All Rev'd Up is brought to you by us, the Revs. Our amazing producers are Kyla Wright and Cavante Smalls. Sponsors include Africana Studies at Berkeley and the Black Christian Experience Resource Center.
Music for this episode is from Emmett G. Price IV. All Rev'd Up is distributed by GBH.
Additional thanks to Elizabeth O'Brien Gardner, Devin Robbins, Meredith Neerman, and Zach Waldman.
If you like what you hear, let us know. Give us a review on Apple Pod and follow us at All Rev'd Up Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Feel free to send us a note, a question, a comment, or an invitation at allrevveduppod@gmail.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks for another episode of All Rev'd Up.